Let me tell you a story about a legal battle where everything, an entire neighborhood's budget, peace of mind, a whole lot of money, all came down to the definition of a single word. Seriously, it's a wild ride where one little adjective led to a court ruling that absolutely nobody saw coming. So get this. Can your HOA jack up your fees by almost 40% when the law explicitly says they can't go over 20%? I mean, that sounds impossible, right? Well, that's the exact puzzle that the residents of Mogollon Airpark in Arizona were trying to solve. They got hit with this huge fee hike that looked like a blatant open and shut violation of the law. But as they were about to find out, the answer was kind of buried in the grammar. Okay, let's just look at the numbers because they're pretty staggering. The annual fee went from $825 to $1,150. Now, Arizona law has a hard cap, 20%. That means the fee shouldn't have gone a penny over $990. But as you can see, it didn't just cross that line, it blew right past it. So how in the world is that even possible? All right, let's dive into the homeowner's side of things first. This was led by a couple of residents, Warren Brown and Brad Stevens. And from where they stood, the math was painfully simple, and the violation couldn't have been more obvious. This one number, 39.4%. This was the core of their whole case. Going from $825 to $1,150 is a 39.4% jump. That's not just over the legal limit, it's nearly double. To them, this was a slam dunk. Case closed. And this right here, this line from the Arizona law books, was their proof. It seems super clear, right? An HOA shall not impose a regular assessment that is more than 20% greater than last year's. For the homeowners, this sentence was everything. Now, here's where their argument got really interesting. They focused on the term regular assessment. They argued that regular didn't describe a type of fee, but the regular process of approving a fee. You know, a motion, someone seconds it, and then a vote. And since that whole $325 increase was passed with that one single process, they said, see, it's all one regular assessment. But the HOA had a completely different story. They didn't just pull this number out of thin air. They argued the increase was necessary. And their entire legal defense was built on driving a wedge between two different types of fees. And this slide, right here, shows you the fundamental disagreement. While the homeowners are looking at this and seeing one big, illegal 39.4% hike, the HOA is saying, whoa, hold on. That's not one increase. That's actually two totally separate increases that just happened to be passed at the same time. And here's how they did the math. The HOA basically split that $325 increase into two different buckets. The first part was a regular increase of $116. At 14.1%, that was well under the 20% cap, no problem there. Then they took the rest, the other $209, and called it something else entirely, a special assessment. And this was their ace in the hole. The HOA's argument was that if you read the law carefully, the one we just saw, it only puts a 20% cap on regular assessments. They argued that special assessments were a totally different animal, a category that had no cap at all. A loophole, basically. So you've got two completely opposite ways of reading the exact same law. The case eventually landed in court at the Office of Administrative Hearings, where a judge had to sort through this mess. And what happened next was a wild split decision that kind of gave everybody a little bit of what they wanted. The person who had to make the final call was Administrative Law Judge Thomas Shedden. And it's important to note, his job wasn't to decide if the fee hike was fair or not, but simply to decide if it followed the exact, literal wording of the law. And this is where it gets really fascinating. The judge had to do something called statutory construction. Think of it like being a language detective. The main rule is that you have to assume that lawmakers chose every single word in a law for a very specific reason. You can't just ignore a word or pretend it's meaningless. And that idea became the key to unlocking this entire case. And here is the bizarre outcome. On the main event, that huge $325 fee increase, the homeowners lost. The HOA actually won. But then, on a smaller, secondary issue about a $25 late fee, the homeowners won. So how on earth did the judge come to two completely opposite conclusions from the same case? Well, it all came back to that one single word, regular. The judge reasoned that if the word regular just meant the normal voting process as the homeowners claimed, then why even have the word in there? It would be pointless because all assessments go through that process. The word had to be there for a reason, to describe a specific kind of assessment. So, the judge's conclusion was that a regular assessment and a special assessment are two different things. And since the law only capped the regular kind, the HOA's 14.1% regular increase was perfectly legal. The massive fee hike was allowed to stand. But then you get to the late fees. Take a close look at the wording in this part of the law. Notice anything missing? The word regular. It's gone. The law just says assessments. And that tiny, tiny difference changed everything. The judge's logic was perfectly consistent. Since the lawmakers chose not to put the word regular here, he had to assume they did that on purpose. That means the $15 cap applies to late payments on any and all assessments, whether they're regular or special. And for that reason, the HOA's $25 late fee was illegal. The homeowners won that point. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? I mean, what a legal roller coaster, right? It's really a powerful lesson in how the absolute smallest details in the rules and laws we live by can have huge, real-world financial consequences. So, just to sum it all up, a single adjective, the word regular, created a legal loophole that allowed a nearly 40% fee hike. The fact that the word was there in one sentence but missing from another led a judge to make two completely opposite rulings. And while the homeowners lost the big fight, one of them, Moore and Brown, did win his case on that illegal late fee, and he even got his $500 filing fee back. It just goes to show reading the fine print can literally pay off. And all of this leaves us with one last question for you to think about. In the rules that govern your life, your lease, your own HOA agreement, maybe your employment contract, what are the tiny little words that you might be glossing over? This case is a huge reminder that there is real power hidden in that fine print. The only question is, are you reading it closely enough?